Salam and welcome to Setit Media. This is our special bi-weekly program where we explore the forces shaping Eritrea and the Horn of Africa with clarity, honesty, and Eritrea first perspective. Today, we are diving deep into emerging and sensitive development, quiet but growing engagement between Eritreans and Tigrayan actors, from community reunion at the border to messaging by online activists, a noticeable but very important thought taking shape. But this hasn't gone unnoticed. The Ethiopian government in Addis Ababa has reacted with unease, some also say panic. Why does a simple people to people interaction cause such an alarm? In this, is this a path to healing or a trap wrapped in nostalgia? To help us unpack this, I'm joined with by activist Daniel G. Michael. Welcome, Daniel, to the show.
Well, I prefer to be called Daniel Taklai, but
That's mostly
that's
people.
what people know me for. Yeah, so let's use my proper last name. But thank you for having me, Abdu, and I appreciate this opportunity, you and to your team. So uh, once again, I'm glad to join you.
Thank you. So I have different segments in order to tackle this issue. The first one is geopolitical impact on the Horn of Africa. Let's zoom out for a bit. So, what does this informal engagement between Eritreans and Tigrayan actors signal for a broader power dynamics in the Horn of Africa, on your view?
Yes, I think the two keywords are informal engagement. In fact, well, let's focus on the informal first. What makes it informal is obviously this engagement. In Tigrinya, we call it sumdo, but at the end of the day, it just means two parties engage into for a common purpose. Is informal so far because what makes it informal is Eritrea as a country,
Sure.
and Tigray is a region with the federated Ethiopia, part of the federal Ethiopia. So nothing could be formal about that. But informally, uh, well, formally they are neighbors. It's the region that borders Eritrea. But what makes it significant is for the last 27 years, there has been basically a state of war that hasn't officially ended until now. Now, for the first time in 27 years, uh, now we are shifting from hopefully from a state of war to a state of peace. And again, what makes it informal is now what does that mean? The engagement has started. Obviously, the powers that be, the authorities have allowed the activists and the people from both sides of the border to engage, to see each other, to visit each other, to talk to each other, and that's the first step. But obviously, it's informal. It's an engagement, but more importantly, we are shifting from a state of war to possibly peace and the beginning of peace. So this is definitely a major shift in dynamics.
Great. As I mentioned in the beginning or in introduction, this has caused some alarm or panic in Addis Ababa. So, could this shift lead to a new alignment or axis of influence across Horn of Africa as a region, or is it potentially isolating Addis Ababa or creating new regional fault lines?
Mm, well, yeah, let's divide that into two though. One is that things that matter to Ethiopia, because this is an internal matter for Ethiopia primarily, because Tigray is part of Ethiopia. And when we talk about Addis Ababa, it's actually the seat of where the federal power is. Now, obviously, it's a weak government that can't really administer its own regions, and one of them being Tigray. So it's a, I mean, Tigray is now basically run by the TPLF, by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and not necessarily by the full influence of the federal government. So there is that panic. Oh, okay, one of my regions is making me irrelevant. So, but that is something that matters to them, and that's not up to Eritrea to decide either.
Mm.
The other part is for the last 5 to maybe even 7 years, Ethiopia has been kind of very provocative towards Eritrea, towards Djibouti, towards Somalia, even Sudan and Egypt. So, and part of this is the war, the internal civil war between, in Ethiopia, what we call the Tigray war, between the federal government and Tigray, and that has caused some direct or indirect effects to the regional powers. So now that we are shifting from, at least from between the Tigray region and Eritrea, some kind of uh, peaceful atmosphere, it will definitely affect everyone, but hopefully positively. Right? And now, I think your question is, this is causing panic in Addis Ababa or with the administration of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Obviously so, because if one is counting on divide and rule and hoping that in order to somehow attack Eritrea, you also have to take advantage of the animosity that already existed between the Tigray region and Eritrea. And if he was counting on that, and that is that rug is being pulled, from under him, of course there's going to be panic. Now, what is he going to do about that? That's yet to be seen, but obviously it's not going to be to his liking. And if he was counting on hate, animosity, and war for his plans, and a peace coalition, a peace engagement is burst in that battle, well, so be it.
Okay. To your point, recently, Ethiopian government has been there's like increased temperature in Addis Ababa. Since 2023, Ethiopian government has been talking about sea access, sea ownership, port access, and the population of Ethiopia is being overwhelmingly greater numbers, and that they're going to need a lot of supplies. So they're looking whether to acquire sea access through diplomatic way, or sometimes they want to resort into to power. Now, given this rhetoric, given this ambition from Addis Ababa, now there is engagement in the border area, which is the Tigray region and Eritrea. Ethiopia seems to see this as a sovereignty issue, a national security issue. Do you think what is being done between, or what we call it, people-to-people engagement, do you think that will be used against Eritrea to wage war if the government in Addis Ababa has any appetite for war?
First let's call things what they are. It can't be a security and sovereignty issue for Ethiopia. If a country is threatening its neighbors, it's a security and sovereignty issue for those who are being threatened, not for the one that is doing the threatening. So this expansionist ambition of Ethiopia that wants to go beyond its orders and beyond its borders and make claims to something it doesn't own, in other words, that's called an act of war. That's called invasion. That's called invasion of sovereignty. So this narrative that this is a sovereignty and national security for Ethiopia. Well, they can call national security for whatever they like. If the price of wheat in China affects their national security, yeah, it's up to them. That we can decide what is national security to them. But to imply that these two regions, well, have like the two peoples, or we can call them neighbors, who have been out of touch and in war situation for a couple of decades, almost 3 decades, and for the first time now they are saying, you know what, no more war. War doesn't work for us, and we are not going to be tools for this crazy ambition that comes out of Addis Ababa, every 10 years, and that claims hundreds of thousands of people. So if the people decide that, and if Addis Ababa or Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed finds that offensive and trying to twist that as um, as invasion of his territorial integrity or something like that. That just doesn't fly.
Okay. Since this realignment or engagement or Rotsundo, has begun in the border area, one of the things that actually I would say like very significant thing that we have seen is a press release from Eritrean government. Have you read the press release and what do you think of it
Yes, I
in
have.
in a context of this revisionist idea that is stemming from Ethiopia and then national security and sovereignty and access to the sea? From that context, what is going on? What is the reaction from the Eritrean government through that press release?
Well, when I heard that press release, of course it's I mean every bullet point that was mentioned there is the truth. But all I can think of was, here we go again, because what is happening is once again Ethiopia would do something, and that threatens the Eritrea and literally attacks it, or prepares to do so, then makes the accusations that little Eritrea is about to invade me, and then creates this uh, uh, diplomatic campaign to make Eritrea look bad and as if it's the offensive party, and then Eritrea is once again forced to reply to it,
Respond.
to give it a response. But the reason I'm saying here we go again is, well, it is good, but once again Ethiopia is playing the narrative according to what it wants it to be. I wish it was the other way around. For almost 2 years now, I think this is coming October, let's say a year and a half, Abiy Ahmed has been basically saying, one way or the other, we're going to get it. Ethiopia will have a navy on the Red Sea, which literally means, okay, you got to go to, and he's not saying this, okay, I'm going to go to Djibouti and fight with the powers that be and make that so. And he's not saying I'm about to go to the Indian Ocean where Somalia is to do that. He's talking about the Red Sea. He's talking about Assam.
Yeah. Okay.
So Eritrea should have been the one who would go to make this diplomatic campaign, or actually go to the UN Security Council and say, make it known that what Ethiopia is claiming could be could start the next war, and make sure that it's censured, make sure that it's warned, if not sanctioned. Eritrea should have done that and then put Ethiopia on the offensive. I mean, on the defensive. Yes, yeah, I like what Eritrea has to say in the press release, but I wish it was the other way around, where Ethiopia would be on the defensive. Well, that's my opinion, but I mean, you can make a counter argument against the other way around as well.
Yesterday, on 29th of June, there was a book signing in Dallas, Texas, by a very known Eritrean author and researcher and a lawyer, Alam Segat. He was mentioning the background of Eritrean struggle in 1940s and 50s. One of the Eritrean icons that was represented Eritrea at the UN convention in 1950s and 52, I believe, Ibrahim Sultan, against the decision that the UN took at that time, said, we will start armed struggle, and this will have a lasting impact in the region. One of the things that he said. So the reason I bring this is, could Eritrea say the same thing, or in a different way, because we are in a different situation in 2025? Could Eritrea say to the UN Security Council, hey, look, Ethiopia is doing this, and they are trying to rewrite the history, or completely write a fiction, not rewriting history, in fact, completely write a fiction saying that they used to own the Red Sea or they want to own a Red Sea. But we are making a note that this will create a an impact in the region, like they did with Somaliland. They went and signed memorandum of understanding, and we saw what happened. So can Eritrea make a similar note to the UN Security Council? I don't know if that body is effective anyway.
Yeah, and that is the very purpose of the United Nations, so that you can go when conflicts arise, you can go to, uh, you know, uh, the UN and make formal complaints and actually have an opportunity for discussion, for peaceful resolution, and so on. That's what it is for. It's not it's not to put out fires. Well, once the war starts, you send in the troops to stop the war. In fact, the UN is terrible at that. It can't do that. It's not empowered to do that, and it rarely does that. But what the UN is good at is, okay, before things get out of proportion, you make formal complaints, and then if worst case scenario, or God forbid, something happens, at least there will be a track record of when things happen and what was Eritrea to do, and so on. Now, having said that, I don't think I have, or maybe others haven't actually looked at it deep enough to say what is exactly Eritrea doing and saying at the UN anyway. What is the timeline? Who is doing when and what, and what's been happening? But we can only gauge that from what's in the news. So yes, can Eritrea make the claim that even though it has, war hasn't started yet, or it hasn't been invaded yet, or it hasn't taken any action, can we just say by going after our history, by making claims that are not true, we find that threatening, so therefore an action should be taken? Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not about making this wild claim. They can say that we used to own from the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean, and according to Abiy Ahmed's blubbering idiocy of what he was talking about, water that is in your body, which we are made up of 75% water, from a glass of water to turning that into rain from the mountains and rivers and the waters in of Ethiopia, from the highlands of Ethiopia. It goes all the way to Sudan and then to Egypt and then to the Mediterranean Sea, he said. And then somehow the Mediterranean Sea water turns into the Red Sea. So therefore, Ethiopia can make a claim. So that could be like the joke of the century. I mean, nobody would take that seriously. But that is what's coming out of his mouth. But what he's really, really saying is that, hey, if we want to, it may not happen. It may happen today. It may happen tomorrow. But we'll get us up one way or the other. That is what is he saying. Now, it's not only one speech. It is a lot of collaborative evidence, from him and other, some of his officials writing articles. The things that he's been doing and saying for the last year and a half, there is plenty of evidence that what he's doing is creating a hostile environment. And hostile environment, of course, leads to hostility. So yes, Eritrea can make a good case around that, and rightly so. Yeah.
While you're, I was looking at the response from the permanent representative of Eritrea to the UN, Ambassador Sophiatis Romario. A few days ago, she wrote, "No neighboring state has never denied Ethiopia access to its ports. Commercial use of Eritrea's port through mutual agreement is open to all states." This has been the principle of Eritrean government in the past, since the independence of Eritrea. In fact, even though there was war at some point in 1999, I believe there was some famine in Ethiopia, if I'm not mistaken. The Eritrean government extended its hands to Ethiopians to use the port. But what happened then was the late Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi, said, "Let the camel drink the sea from the sea." some sort of. It was weird to say that, but that's what the answer was. Um, I'm just trying to uh, uh, draw a picture of the background. So, like I mentioned earlier, there was a fiasco, a diplomatic fiasco in 2024, I believe, at the beginning of the year. Ethiopian government signed memorandum of understanding with Somaliland, a breakaway region in Somalia. Now the memorandum of understanding is dead. It seems the rhetoric that Ethiopian Prime Minister started back in 2023 is still alive, and he's pushing for it. So, what impact could this the engagement between Eritreans and the Ethiopians, what impact could it have in the future of regional cooperation? Because as we know, Eritrean government always has pushed for regional cooperation. So what impact could this have on a regional cooperation framework or integration efforts in the Horn of Africa?
Yeah, well, the that integration, that positive integration of economic cooperation and so on, could only happen if there is peace among countries. Yeah, if there is hostility, if there is somebody trying to take over, there will be a reaction to that. And central to that has been Ethiopia. I can't pinpoint anything that says, okay, Djibouti is our cause and we should focus on Djibouti. I don't see that. Sudan is the cause. We should focus on Sudan. I don't see that. Eritrea, even though they keep claiming that, it's not. It's the center of chaos in the region has been Ethiopia. Now, but unfortunately, it's not only us, but the international media, the people in the region, even Ethiopians, Eritreans, we've been actually, I don't know, for lack of a better term, too nice or too accommodating to their very, very offensive words. I mean, he just mentioned what Mallas Zenawi said in the past. It's a strategic move. What he basically said was, the hell with Eritrea and their port. Let their camels drink from the sea, which is the dumbest thing ever, because if camel drinks sea salt or seawater, it would die. As a matter of fact, any animal who drinks that would die. Any land animal would do that. So that's dumb. But what's even more sinister than that is, okay, let's starve them. We can make peace. We can say, okay, we recognize Eritrea as a sovereign country, and us using ASAP makes sense to us. It's going to cost us about $500 million or $1 billion, but that 500 million and 100, to $1 billion would enrich Eritrea. Would not make it very rich, but at least stabilize the Eritrean economy, and Eritrea would grow, and it will solidify its independence, even though it was already achieved. Now, they never want that to happen. So the way to weaken it is, okay, first of all, if you give it this no war, no peace situation, and at the same time stop using the airports so that they are starved from economically starved, then one day the people of Eritrea will be tired of this independence that is not fully so, and they will come begging back to Ethiopia. That's been the strategy for the last 35 years. That's what the TPLF tried to do when Mallas Zenawi was in power, and when others were. They can call it EPRDF, whatever. Now, and Abiy Ahmed's the position hasn't changed that yet. And today, to this day, as the Ambassador Sofia Tesfamariam said, nobody has prevented Ethiopia from using it peacefully. In another word, another way of saying that is like, if you want to use it legally, if you want to rent port services, here you go, pay for it, it's yours. But if you want to claim it, own it, and use it as if it's yours, or worse, use it to invade us once again, as you have done before, we won't let you. That's the bottom line. Now, if Djibouti says that, people will say, "Oh, of course, that's a respectful thing to say." But when Eritrea says it, they can actually counter claim and say, "Oh my God, Eritrea is about to invade us, or Eritrea is causing internal problems for us." And then the other part is like, "Okay, now that we are 100 million, we can say that stupid thing again." Well, so what? If it was stupid when you were 30 million, if you were stupid when you have 60 million people, what makes it less stupid when you have 130 million? Did Nigeria say that as its population grew over the last 30 years? Did Egypt say that? No, only Ethiopia. So we've been very accommodating to their stupidity. So that's the first thing that I want to say. And in fact, another way of saying that is that when it comes to Eritrea, people have been too accommodating to Ethiopia's stupid moves. But at the end of the day, your question is how is this going to affect the regional dynamics? Well, it's not only to Eritrea that Ethiopia has been making stupid claims against. It's against Somalia by making deals with a region, Somaliland, which which ended up being nullified. It starts making claims, stupid claims, not as offensive as to Eritrea, but to Egypt. I'm talking about to Djibouti, and what's been happening in the last 2-3 months. Well, with Eritrea, it's been for the last 35 years nonstop. Same thing with Sudan. Same thing with Egypt. So this has been kind of this one-sided, very ambitious, very undiplomatic moves on Ethiopia's part. So how is this going to affect the regional dynamics? We can talk about that, but let's first say a spade to a spade. Well, spade to a spade. What Ethiopia is doing is not normal. It's not acceptable anywhere else, throughout the world, throughout the region, in Africa or elsewhere. So I think we should be more direct and out what they are saying is basically unacceptable at all. Am I on?
I don't know if you can hear me.
I
have a computer issue, so I'm gonna continue in this one. I was trying to get. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to get the former ambassador of the U.S. to Ethiopia, David Shin. He mentioned something in his video. So Mela Zenawi told him that they didn't have any doubt that the two nations would unite. It was a matter of time. So I was trying to take I was trying to hear your take on that. I don't know if you recall that what he said. Do you remember that video, or do you?
Yeah, and because I was, I guess, as many Eritreans, I was old enough to have voted during the referendum to say, from here on, Eritrea is an sovereign and independent nation, and well, just to use the numbers, there were 1.1 million of us who actually said yes to independence.
Yeah.
So if some idiot comes and say, "Oh, you know what? We really need to take a second look at that," I don't care if they are an ambassador or a prime minister or a king of some distant land. Our answer should be, yeah. So who cares? You're just one person with one opinion, or hundreds of. I'm not even talking about the price that was paid to make Eritrea independent. The blood that was shed. Let's forget that. But even if we are going to count, the future of Eritrea, it's only up to Eritreans, and Eritreans have decided that long time ago. We can even say before 1993, decades ago, but formally in 1993. So anybody who says anything to counter that, we shouldn't take them seriously. We shouldn't accommodate them. We should call it what it is, and I know a lot of people don't like the word stupid, but this is stupid, even if it comes from an ambassador, American ambassador or Ethiopian prime minister.
Okay,
it's not only, by the way, stupid is okay. It's offensive when Trump was talking about invading Greenland and Panama and turning Gaza into a resort, what did people say? That is dumb and stupid and offensive and unacceptable. And this is exactly that. So let's not give them too much weight that they don't deserve.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Before going to a different segment, does this informal alliance risk drawing Eritrea into renewed internal Ethiopian rivalries with regional spillover effect? Because it seems there is always regional rivalries in Ethiopia.
Okay, so yeah, by regional within Ethiopia,
Within Ethiopia.
yes, there is always a danger of that. But so far, let's also lay out the facts. Like we said in the beginning, so far it's been an informal process, and I think the Eritrean government is doing its level best to not appear that it's meddling with Ethiopia's internal affairs. But at the same time, to have said, look, if the neighbors, the people across the border, the people who live on both sides of the border, if they want to make peace, if they want to see each other, if even in the diaspora, Eritrean activists and Tigrayan activists and other Ethiopian activists and Amhara activists and other peace-loving people, if they want to engage with each other and talk about, war doesn't work for us. Let's talk about peace. That is not meddling with Ethiopia's internal affairs. In fact, it's actually preventing from things getting out of proportion.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, Ethiopia's internal matters is for Ethiopians to decide, and I don't think the policy from Eritrea has changed at all. I know on social media people are blowing things out of proportion, talking about this engagement as if that is so, and the Ethiopian government or their supporters would like us to believe that this is actually a coalition that is coming after them. They may be threatened by this. Let them say whatever they will, but facts matter. Now, if the question is, can it potentially draw Eritrea unnecessarily into Ethiopian affairs? Yes, and that's why we need a red line to say, this is what matters to us, and this is what should not matter to us because it's none of our business. Now, factually, if someone can say, well, now this exact situation crosses that line, let them say so. Otherwise, I think the danger is there, but I don't think it has been crossed yet.
Let's shift back to Eritrea's national interest. What risks and opportunities do you see this dynamic pose for Eritrea's long-term national strategy, especially as it seeks stability and without getting entangled in the internal matter of Ethiopia?
Absolutely, and that is actually what I'm motivated by. That I'm an Eritrean, and my primary objective is, how does this benefit Eritrea and Eritreans? This entanglement that we've been in, this sometimes war, sometimes no war, no peace situation for the last 3 decades, Absolutely. It has devastated Eritrea and its economy. I mean, Eritrea has prevailed, Eritrea has survived it, but the lost opportunity, the pain and suffering that came out of that is just immeasurable. So any move like this that says, okay, now we're going to create a buffer zone of peace, at least the people, the region that is next to us will not be used to potentially use like border issues or some kind of ethnic conflict, some kind of politics, so that the government in Addis Ababa could make that as a pretext to create more chaos for Eritrea, or to entangle it, to freeze its economy for decades to come. So now, by solving that, by turning that state of war into, even if we don't call it state of peace yet, or move toward peaceful situation that really, really helps Eritrea, and Eritreans should really support this, because at a minimum, we will not be constantly worried about what our next people across the border will do or will be forced to do. So that definitely will have a direct impact on Eritrea's internal affairs, and that also means internal affairs means that Eritrea needs badly to reform its economy, its politics. It is in the process of transitioning from what we call the godly generation, from the freedom fighters who got us independence and who maintain independence and sovereignty for the last 3 decades. They are about to retire, and the baton is now being passed to the next generation. So as we are doing all that, we need peace, and we need it badly, and this is the right move. That's why, especially Eritreans, they should not even hesitate on supporting this.
Okay, given the volatility in the region, how can Eritrea protect its sovereignty while remaining engaged and proactive in the regional affairs?
Well, when it comes to sovereignty, and I think that is true for almost all nations in the world, but especially for us Eritreans, for people in Eritrea, it is our defense force. I mean, we can make logical arguments and we can create the political atmosphere and we can create narratives that says, hey, this is not acceptable and should not be crossed. But at the end of the day, it's the Eritrean defense forces that keep the sovereignty of Eritrea and territorial integrity and internal peace intact. So first and foremost, the best way to prevent war is from preventing it from starting it in the first place, and only a strong army is able to do that. Only strong defense forces are able to do that. Then at the end of the day, it's not you can, as they say, you can't clap with one hand, or it takes two to tango. Even if we want peace, even if we want to say, okay, we will defend ourselves, but our primary choice is peace, it doesn't mean that's what you get. Okay. And at the end of the day, if worse comes worse, and Eritreans have more experience in defending their country than the other parties have in invading and actually winning wars, so that we can count on. But since we are talking about this engagement of those who want to make peace their priority, or let's call it the No More War coalition, it has started among Eritreans and Tigrayans. I'm sure it will expand beyond that to include the Amhara people, the Oromo people even, but definitely the Amhara and the Tigrayans and the Eritreans, and with their people, peace-loving people on Sudan, Djibouti, the Afar people on both sides of the border. Sure. If all of these people at a minimum say, you know what, no more war, because we don't benefit from it, other than of course it ruins lives, it ends lives and ruins the economy and makes situations even worse. If they say no to it, instead of getting swept away with this dreamy us versus them, either we win or they win, if they come out of that, and if this No More coalition actually keeps growing, that's also the best, well, let's call it the second best way to make sure Eritrea remains peaceful and intact. And I'm very confident on both sides, by the way, on the Eritrean Defense Forces' ability to keep Eritrea safe, okay, and also the people and the leadership's ability to make this campaign wider and bigger, so that the Ethiopians are not, or the Ethiopian government doesn't use this, doesn't make this as if it's a call for attack against it.
Okay. The history between Eritrea and Ethiopia, especially the history between the elites from Tigray and Eritrea, is not always a positive history. There is always threats and issues. So now, and when people see these engagements and alliances in the border, as there is like fear that this engagement may allow the old problems from Tigray, the Tigrinyan narrative, to resurface under a different banner. Do you see that a legitimate problem or a concern?
It is a concern, but it's a small one. And sometimes we also blow it out of proportion. Because in order to make that happen, you basically have to erase the notion that Eritrea is a country of made up of 9 ethnic groups. It has created, what Eritrea has created, this is what we call Eritrea, with not Eritreanism, which is an identity on its own that says, yes, we do have our ethnic identities and language identities and religious identities and other what we call subnational identities. But the reason you and I are talking is because we are Eritreans. And Eritrea, if that Tigrinya agenda, and for people who are not too familiar with it, they may not even know what we are talking about. But it's basically boils down to there are the Tigrinya ethnic group on both sides of the border, meaning in Ethiopia and Eritrea. And so some people are claiming, okay, could this be and there are some ethnic nationalists, very, very few, and something that started probably in the 40s, but it quickly fizzled off, is to create a nation made up of this Tigrinya people. Now, it's nothing new. Every ethnic group in the world tries to have a nation of its own, but history and the way things transpired over the last 100 years, that's not what happened. What happened is sometimes ethnic groups on an international boundary would divide them into 2 countries and sometimes into 3 countries. Take the Afar people, for example, in our region. They live in Djibouti and Ethiopia and Eritrea. But that's not an exception or special. In fact, it's the norm. For every ethnic group that we can mention about Eritrea, be it the Kunama or the Belja, the Benamir, the Rashaida, there are other people who speak the same language and have the same culture on the other side of the border.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I keep saying this for the last few years. If you use that formula to create nations based on ethnicity in Africa, some estimate you would have about, the range is quite big, but minimum you would have about 1,000 countries. Maximum you could have about 3,000 countries. It's not only in us, it's everywhere.
Okay.
Every nation that in the world, even if you go to Djibouti, there are the Afars and the Isas, and you would find ethnic groups
Everywhere.
that have other people on the other side of the border. Somalia in itself, there are actually probably, I don't know, more Somalis in Ethiopia than are in Somalia. I could be wrong, but quite a huge region. If you take Russia, for example, even not the Soviet Union, but the Russia proper that we know of, they have 190 ethnic groups that live within Russia. Some of them are Russians, the rest are not. We call all of them Russians as if they are one ethnic group. So it is very normal to have. We can talk. You can go to Turkey and talk about the different ethnic groups they have. You can go to Saudi Arabia, even though they look all like Arabs. You will find the same thing. So this notion of Tigrinya as if it is something special, and this coalition is about to change that dynamic, is blown out of proportion. It's not true. Especially on the Eritrean side, there is zero appetite for it. But thanks to social media and a few YouTubers and some loudmouths with very, very
little knowledge,
very racist and of
fascist tendencies,
fascist mentality, they raise that, and if they say, "Oh, we also want peace," okay, all right, everybody can benefit from peace. We have no problem with that. But
Mm.
that has zero chance, and it should not try. Well, especially from the Eritrean side, it should not be seen as a threat because it's not so. It doesn't exist.
The reason I raised that question is, I mean, in recent years, we have seen activities on social media. I say that only because it's only on social media. We have seen some very racist, fascist. Sometimes they want it to be a Zionist ideology holders. So we have seen those elements, and the ideology or the motive for those elements seem to be originating from some Tigrayan universities. So people have concern. Okay, if a professor at University of Mekelle or Aksum was preaching for this kind of fascist administration to be implemented between Eritrea and Ethiopia, or bring the people of Eritrea and people of Tigray region together and create one ethnic centered government, which they advocate for fascism, actually, when you look at what they advocate deeply. So there is this concern. And I really want to know, I really want to emphasize on this because there are also like foreigners. They want the writers or activists, journalists. They also push for this idea, and I think they need to understand the concern and the threat that this poses to Eritreans. So that's why I raise it. If you have more to say on that.
Well, whatever they are, politicians or journalists who may be pushing towards it, it's for the luck. These are people who just go to Google and Google something and they find some talking point from some idiot, and then they go like, okay. Well, most likely these people have probably never heard of Eritrea in the last, if you ask them, 10 years ago, they probably never heard of it. So I wouldn't take them seriously. But at the end of the day, it's a problem of nation building. Now, when you build a nation, it's to say, like, we are all if you are in Rwanda and you're trying to create this nation building, and somebody is, okay, oh, but I'm Hutu or a Tutsi, of course you will have that issue. But if you are committed to nation building, what you give priority is to create this new identity called I am Rwandese, and I am going to make that my primary identity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come to Americans, for example, even the civilized, the so-called civilized Europeans or even Americans, they still struggle. People say, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Hispanic, and then I'm Native American, and I'm Indian, and I'm all these hyphenated Americans. But there's always a struggle. But at the end of the day, we are all Americans. Let's focus on American identity is what they fight for every day of the year, like 250 years later. That is an issue because nation building is hard. You got to keep that. So in our case, we shouldn't say, oh, poor us. Some fanatic person who does not have the political or any kind of influential power to make it so. If they make these wild claims, it's not as easy as that. Okay. So we rather talk about, now we are excited about peace because it's being done by people who have the power to make war. It's only those who have the power to make war can create peace. It's only those who have the power to make war who we should be threatened by. When they talk about, okay, they're gonna do now, do we hear that from the powers that be? At least when it comes to this Tigrinya agenda, from on the military side, on the Eritrean side, of course, obviously they are proud of Eritreanism, and they are trying to actually teach the people across the border to say, look, if you want to keep peace, if you want to create a national identity, if you want to build a nation, we have the better formula. So Eritrea's formula works better. But is there a threat at this time, today? from the powers, the political power or military powers in Tigray that are pushing this Tigrinya agenda. I don't see it. No.
Okay.
Yeah. There are the fringe elements, but I don't think they have the power or the wherewithal or the means to make it happen. No.
Okay. Last Wednesday, we had on this channel, we had a interactive program where people call and ask questions regarding the engagement or Sumdo or alliance that we call in the border, what's going on in the border, because there has been people to people interaction and engagement at the border area between Eritrea and Ethiopia. So I think the engagement is also happening in diaspora. I say that because in the program, one Ethiopian called us here on live, and he mentioned he raised very important question. So the question was to the panelists were like obviously engineer Suleiman and researcher Elias Amare. So the question was, why is international and regional media organizations are not publishing what's going on in the border of Eritrea and Ethiopia? And it's really great point, a great question, because I say that when there is a little negativity, they jump and they look for extra negativity to publish, to distribute, to take it to Al Jazeera, take it to BBC, take it to all over the international news organizations. But when there is a little bit positivity, they are nowhere to find. What do you say in this kind of phenomena in the region?
As you were saying that, I was envisioning like CNN or Al Jazeera breaking news. There is now peace between the northern part of Ethiopia and Eritrea. The people are hugging each other and dancing and reuniting. More details at 11. We don't expect that. In this day and age, what they call it, if it bleeds, it leads. If there's blood, it will be there. But I don't think we should play victim to that. That's how the world works. Peace is not interesting. War is. Because it creates this sense of urgency. But let's not make it to make the claim that that's what they want, and they, we are this little pawns on the chess game, and they play us, and we are the. Well, first of all, let's start from our side. What we've been talking about peace and Tzumdo. I don't even think forget the rest of the world. I don't even think the rest of Ethiopia knows exactly what we are talking about, because our Tzumdo, our coalition, has mainly been done in Tigrinya. Among rightly so too, because that's how you start. Now, if I am an Ethiopian who speaks Amharic, I wouldn't even understand what the big deal is or what we are really trying to say. And now we are talking in English right here. At least it helps someone who doesn't speak Tigrinya. At least there's such a thing. But I think we should do a better job of informing the world. In fact, you can also spin it so that it makes actually interesting, because what news channels want? They want something interesting. They're not interested in even necessarily conflict, but give it an angle. So maybe it's up to us activists, if on the Tigrayan side, or on the other Ethiopian side, or on the Eritrean side, what do we want the international media to say about it? What headline we would like them to write? So we need to help them do that. At the end, plus, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. You try to create that narrative, but then there is the other party that says, hey, by the way, they are just preparing for another war. So who do they believe? So there is that as well. But I wouldn't be surprised. But let's not be too victimized by it.
Sure. So earlier you mentioned something about everybody supporting the realliance or Tzumdo or engagement with our Ethiopian brothers or our Ethiopian brothers and sisters, wherever they are, especially in the border areas. There is hesitation You can see hesitation from the supporters of the government, the opposition, or the people in between. You see hesitation every day. So, what can be done to ensure that the majority of Eritreans are on board with any strategic engagement or diplomatic um, recalibration without compromising our national values? So, I say national values because that is what binds us together. Me and you are from a different ethnic group. I am from one different ethnic group. What binds us together, what brings us together is our national values. So without compromising these national values, how can everybody, every Eritrean, can be on board with any recalibration or with any diplomatic efforts that is being taken or will be taken uh, to ease the problems with neighboring countries, especially with Ethiopia's Tigray region.
Yeah, I think the key to this is trust. If people trust the process, if people trust the goal, they will be on board. If they are suspicious of the aims of it or the process that is being followed, they will be hesitant. So that's understood. Now, when you change something from 3 decades of basically thinking the same way,
Hmm.
they are coming after us, we have to defend ourselves. And this is what they are claiming, this is what we are claiming. So it's kind of lines have been drawn for so long. An entire generation actually from both sides. Like if we talk about 27 years, somebody who was born in 1990, they are now ready to get married probably, or
Or
probably
maybe they have kids.
they have kids. So it's been a while. So when this positive dynamic or positive step towards peace comes just like that, you don't expect everybody to come on board at the same time. There's a phase called the trust building. So the trust building phase is what we saw, and it's been executed excellently. And I was like, we are really underestimating what actually is already being done. First of all, it was well thought of. Instead of because it has to be done informally, it has to be done people to people, it has to be done activist to activist first. There were steps taken. Look, we all benefit from peace. At the same time, if worst case scenario comes and there is this what Abiy Ahmed keeps pushing this rhetoric that if we one by hook or crook we're gonna get to ASAP, or he's going to start some kind of war that affects our sovereignty. It's to our benefit to say, first of all, there will be peace among us, which means our animosity will not be used against us. So to say that it's been well thought of. And what we have seen the last few weeks, if doesn't increase your trust level, and then I don't know what will, but we don't expect that to be at 100% yet. Now, why are people mistrustful? One is because they think, oh, they have seen this before, and the word betrayal gets thrown around quite a lot. Let's give them that. But the focus is, okay, that is in the past. That's yesterday. Now you have a clear and present danger in front of you. Based on that clear and present danger, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep fighting so that a third party comes, takes advantage of you? Like this two deer fighting and their horns are interlocked, and then a tiger comes and eats both of them. Do you want that? Or do you want to say, okay, let's even agree to disagree on some things, on all these accusations and counter accusations? Let's postpone that, and let's also take this opportunity to say, you know what? Why should we suffer because of some sick plans in Addis Ababa? So let's take that as one day at a time. So there is that part. Then the second part is more toward Eritreans. Okay, if the Eritrean military leaders, political leaders, who actually have to actually live by this and live this reality on day-to-day basis, if they think the best way to protect Eritrea is this move, who are we to judge? I mean, I don't mean we shouldn't question them, but I don't think we know more than they do. They have more facts, more intelligence, more data, and it would probably be easier for them to say, you know what, this army that's been killing my people, killing my soldiers, I'm going to destroy them one day, and we should continue this state of war. It probably is easier for them to do that. In fact, there is the political will to do that, but they went against it. They became creative, and at the end of the day, even military leaders, when they are pushing for peace, I think that should be supported 100%, no matter what. So my main message is, okay, so if it's about trust, who do you trust? And I think I definitely trust the Eritrean government and the Eritrean army and the Eritrean people to do what is best for them. And I think that is what's happening. Now, let's go on the other side, where there is the mistrust. Of course, these are especially between the TPLF and we can call it between TPLF, PFDJ, but between Tigray and Eritrea, there's not been maybe a window of a few years, but for the last 30, 40 years, it hasn't been positive. And things don't change, just like that. And I don't think even they are changing the way we want them to be. It will take time.
Okay.
But I think if everything that's happening doesn't give us, doesn't make us pause and be hopeful, there is something wrong there. Now, having said that, there are people who are outside of this who actually look at this coalition a threat to their mission. If they want a violent regime change in Eritrea, this makes it even harder for them. If they are hoping that Abiy Ahmed would do something so that he somehow topples the Eritrean government and then they want to position themselves as next in line to be in power, of course they are not going to like this. So everybody has their own motive. But I think the vast majority supports this. It's hard to gauge it, but I sometimes use data. I will say it has been kind of a dynamic spokesperson for this. He's been very effective. And the number of people who have been watching those videos tell me a lot. It's millions of people so far. So that's where the vast majority are.
Let's end up by answering the question on the screen. When people look at what's going on in the border of Ethiopia and Eritrea, the Tigray region of Ethiopia and Eritrea, they perceive that as engagement or alliances between TPLF and PFDJ. We can talk about their history and their background, or maybe it is public knowledge by now, how those two organizations came and how they supported each other until they toppled the Derg regime in Ethiopia in 1991. But things changed when Ethiopia, that was being led by the TPLF majority government in Ethiopia in 1998, when Ethiopia invaded Eritrea. Since then, things have been rough until 2018, and then here we are now in a different situation. But the question is, people think this is between two organizations that are afraid of the central government in Ethiopia. There might be reasons why people think that way, but that's the understanding of majority of people. They think the TPLF that is now afraid of the central government. Their fear is that similar thing might happen, like what happened in 2020, and the Eritrean government or the PFDJ is afraid of the rhetoric regarding the sea access. Maybe not afraid, but concerned of that rhetoric. So they think what's going on is just a temporary fix to their problem. So can we say, is this an alliance, or do you think it's illusion between those two organizations?
Yeah, and there is when people say they are afraid, there is this, sense of bravado, like, who is going to chicken out, uh, my tool is bigger than yours kind of attitude. We hear that. But here's the truth of the matter. First of all, organizationally, this let's even call it TPLF and EPLF on our side. They've been around for over 5 decades, over 50 years. In fact, it's the only two organizations that have been around in the region for that long. You would not find that in Ethiopia, or in Somalia, or in Sudan, in the whole Horn of Africa region. So, um, so they're not to be underestimated as far as their ability to influence people, to be taken seriously. And when it comes to push to shove, when the two powers decide to put their resources together, they change Ethiopia forever, just like that. Yeah. In fact, when they did, Eritrea and Ethiopia changed it forever. So they're that powerful. So when when people talk about being afraid and fearful, we're not talking about this testosterone-driven bravado. That we're not talking about that. But at the same time, governments, if they their primary purpose is to protect the safety of their people. And one way they do that is by being afraid of war. It's like, oh, let's prevent war from coming to us. So call that fear, call that strategy, but that's what we want good leaders to do. To say, war is coming to us. We're not going towards it. We are going to prevent it. We're going to diffuse it. We are going to make a move that sounds so uncomfortable at the end of the day. In the long term, that's what we should do. We should have done years ago anyway. Let's do that. So that takes courage. That takes the ultimate courage to say, because it's so easy to say, I've been calling these people names and going after them for years. In fact, shouldn't to kill them, not just only a couple of years ago, only 4 or 5 years ago. So now we are going to change the dynamic because we have bigger fish to fry, we have bigger enemy, we have bigger threat. To say that, to pivot like that, to make changes like that, takes courage, takes vision, and to also takes confidence in their ability to convince their people, their army, and the world that that's exactly what they're doing. So definitely I see strengths there.
Okay.
But if it literally means like, we are afraid war might come and hurt us if we don't do this, call it fear too, if you want to.
Daniel, thank you for joining Setit special bi-weekly program, and thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me, Abdul, and I appreciate what you guys are doing with this English program, because now you are broadening your audience. Thank you.
Thank you. To our viewers, Eritrea's path must always be shaped by strategic clarity, historical memory, and national unity. Until the next time, this was a special bi-weekly program of Setit Media. Thank you very much. Everywhere you are, have a good one.